Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our review of House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 4. Now we get uncomfortable. This show, they took their time to ease us into the Targaryen, aka the overall Game of Thrones ways, the things that happen with Targaryens. We are here.
Listen, I don't think anybody's too shocked about this. I mean, personally, I'm not. That very first scene where we saw Daemon come back and put that necklace around her, I was like, this is the thing that's going to happen.
Yep.
We know that the Targaryens' family relations is something that they are seemingly okay with. I mean, it was just the last episode. We saw somebody suggest that Rhaenyra marry her 2-year-old brother. So, I mean, seeing everything that was coming together in this episode, it was like, I feel like we all kind of knew it was going in this direction.
I think ultimately this is the way of Game of Thrones. I can feel like it is icky, but this is the world. We have to accept the world that we're seeing, and there's just so much to talk about, like politically, the chess game that is being played. Yep. Daemon up this place in a really big way in this episode. Before we talk more about the Daemoning, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because after every episode of House of the Dragon, we are here trying to break everything down. How uncomfortable will they make us? We will see.
Can it get any more uncomfortable than it is? Follow us on Instagram at Jess TV. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this, you know, I mentioned this a couple of videos ago. I think it was the premiere when we saw the necklace go on. I think there was a lot of us that were like, okay, this Daemon Rhaenyra thing feels like a thing that is going to end up coming together. I mean, he even said at the end of this, when he was talking to his brother, the king, was like, listen, just wed her to me. I'll take her as she is. She'll be my second wife. Everything will be fine. He said no, but I think these two are going to get married. And for anyone who's read the books, we haven't. So please don't leave it in the comments. Should this actually be a thing? We're only show watchers here. So we're just going on theories of like what we think could happen. And after watching how Rhaenyra handled everything, she knows she was in the wrong. She knows she did a lot going on that night with her Kristen, with her uncle, with sneaking out, with all of that sort of stuff. She knows that she's doing some lying. She's lying to Alicent. She's lying to her father. And she's swearing on her mother who has passed away. Like, she is really being a Daemon in this situation where she is playing everything that she needs to be able to still have this opportunity to possibly be the person that sits on the throne as of right now. She is willing to burn everybody, and she is burning Otto to the ground.
I think this is what makes this episode really good, and I think it's better and better, like, the more you kind of sit around and think of it. It's just that everything that happens with Daemon, with Rhaenyra in this episode, like, it's all politically based. Like, the idea of romance for the sake of true love in this world, I don't want to sit here and be like, it doesn't exist, but it is very, very scant. It is rare. I think the closest thing to like a true, potentially romantic bond, ironically, that we had was with Alicent and Rhaenyra very early on in this show. And clearly they have gone very different directions since then. But Rhaenyra, she's thinking throughout all of this clearly about, how can I find a way to position myself so that down the road I am the ruler of Westeros, that I am the queen who is on the Iron Throne. She's thinking of this when it comes to Daemon. I think she's thinking of this when it comes to being with Sir Christian and another, like, wait, Game of Thrones? Well, I'm just in Game of Thrones. I'm still in that mindset, like, we're doing this now, but I think that's all political. I think the difference of how Rhaenyra tells this story to Alicent as opposed to, how Daemon is just sort of like not denying any of these rumors to King Viserys. Like, it's all political and interesting, and it's like this chessboard, and everybody's making their own moves, thinking it's going to get them to the end.
Yeah, I think that Daemon knew that this would eventually get back to his brother. I mean, he came back after winning this, huge battle with the crab people, and he was really feeling himself with his crown and, getting the hug from his brother in front of the whole court to be like, good job, pat on the back, Daemon sort of thing. That what's the next thing he can do to sort of like get under his brother's skin? I know. I'm gonna take your daughter out and do some stuff. And I'm gonna, he wasn't making sure it was gonna get back to the king, but, he's been around. He knows that there's spies everywhere. It's very likely to get back to the king. They're in a very public area. He's not an idiot. He knows that this will eventually get back. And I think that is part of it for him. He wants to get under his skin. I think the idea of them wedding at that point was just like how can I make it even worse? But I mean, really, the two of them together, could have a good claim on the throne. I know, she was watching that play and it was sort of like, oh, we never want a queen on the throne without a king sort of thing. It's just kind of like, could the two of them be more poised to be together, ruling together over Aegon or not?
It's really bizarre. It's like there needs to be some sort of like demented point system going on here when it comes to the Iron Throne, where it's like, okay, these two together is worth how many points to get the Iron Throne? How many points does Aegon have on his own? It's also unbelievably messed up how a lot of this works. But, if Daemon or Rhaenyra end up thinking that this is their best pathway to get there, I think obviously they're going to do it and they're not going to care who gets in their way.
The king is not having it. No. He's just like, no. Okay, you know what? I had all these suitors planned for you. You didn't want any of them. Now there's this rumor about your uncle. You're denying it. So now you're going to marry the sea snake's son, and that's just the way that it's going to be. But the king is no fool. He was being manipulated somewhat with Otto and Alicent to get married and all of that, and that he had been sort of moving up. And I don't think that Otto is all bad or all bad intentions. Of course, everybody in this world wants to move up, right? Yeah. But I don't think he's doing everything in the most he's not like Littlefinger who's willing to do anything and some pretty bad stuff to get to where he wants to be. But the king is really kind of onto all of it now, where he's just like, listen, okay, maybe you're coming and telling me the truth, but, there was this thing you did, all of a sudden your daughter's here, giving me a hug. Well, everything is so bad, that's not a coincidence. And he takes the hand from him and is like, okay, you're done. But the biggest move at the end was letting Rhaenyra know that he knows she's not telling the truth by bringing her that tea.
There is just there's so much going on here, and it's one of those things where you sit back and you wonder, okay, who is actually really winning the game? Because is it King Viserys because he brings the he has that tea brought to Rhaenyra? Is it Rhaenyra because Rhaenyra ends up getting Otto sort of stripped of his title? The thing is that you touched on this with Otto, is that Otto is no worse than anybody else in this world. He's not, like you say, he's not Littlefinger. He's not some great extreme level villain. Guess what? He is a self-interested dude who's doing whatever he can to rise up the ranks, who realized very early on that, hey, my daughter can be used as political leverage. Don't marry, Lena. Don't marry somebody tied to Corus Velaryon. This is a great option for you. And he just so happened to luck out in the sense that, Alicent had an emotional connection to Viserys, and so he manipulated that however he saw fit. I mean, Otto seemed like he was actually a kind of reasonable hand of the king, as opposed to some other hands of the kings we could see moving forward here.
He actually went to the king to tell him some pretty bad information. I mean, he even said, he's like, I could have just not told you. And, and if he hadn't told him, he still would have had his spot. But as he said, a good hand of the king is going to tell you the truth. They're going to have to come to you and tell you the bad stuff that you don't want to hear. And a bad hand of the king would never tell you because, and that's not going to be helpful.
The thing that makes this episode so good to me and why, I'm so curious already to hear what all you guys have to say in the comments about it is because it's so insular in a way where Game of Thrones was so big and it just sort of like exploded outward every single episode where they're like, let's go to Dorne, let's go and see what's going on over here with Daenerys, let's go beyond the wall. It's like here, everything is so concentrated. I mean, we're not even going in this episode to the Stepstones because we have Daemon strutting back in. So it's all, which by the way, it's just like, look at me and my crown.
He's so great.
He is the best character on this show.
He's great. Matt is great. Patty is great. This cast is incredible.
Everybody is so good from top to bottom. And just by having them all so concentrated and by having this episode so character focused, like they're bringing in a lot of elements that you don't see on a lot of fantasy shows, whereas you have like multiple perspectives where you have unreliable narrators. Like this is so based on these individual people and it's not just using the world or, hey, look, there's a dragon. Like none of that is a crutch for any of all of this. It's fascinating to watch. And I think were it not for the fact that there are people out there who know the books already and everything else, like I really don't think anyone would know where this is going.
Yeah, books aside, just us TV watchers, it is interesting to see where this goes from here. Who's going to be the next hand of the king? And are they going to be sort of as loyal as Otto was? Or, how are things now going to move with, Rhaenyra and the king? Because like I said, that giving her the tea was basically like, I know what you did. You told me what you told me, but I'm telling you, I know. So they both know what the truth is, and they just haven't come together to kind of be like, okay, it's all on the table now. It was more of a like, I know what you did, and now you know that I know. So how do we go forward from here?
It's why I really think there's no clear winner coming out of this episode. Like, to me,
it certainly isn't Otto.
No, Otto is the clear absolute loser. Like, we can all agree on that.
The winner out of this is Daemon. He really pissed off his brother.
Daemon won the moment he walked in wearing that crown. It's like,
he did.
You were not in the Stepstones anymore, bro. You don't have to come in here wearing your stupid crown and then take it off in front of him because you're just so smarmy. But like, it is with the king, he wins in the sense that he makes it clear to Rhaenyra, okay, I know what you did, but at the same time, Rhaenyra wins because she gets rid of Otto. So there's like a compromise, and I think there's really going to be a tug of war now moving forward because, Sir Rhaenyra's going to be off somewhere. All of a sudden, he's going to be like, I'm getting married now? All of a sudden? How did this happen?
Well, it's also going to be interesting for Rhaenyra going forward because while she, wants to be queen, she doesn't want everything that kind of comes with it, like the getting married off. And, she even said, my mother tried to produce heirs until she died. Like, I don't want to just be a person who's just going to keep on producing babies because that's my job kind of thing. And we even saw sort of that back and forth of Alicent being with the king and then her outliving life with her uncle and going through the city and seeing the plays and everything that happened with them where she was sort of a more free spirit. And I think she's going to have a really hard time balancing that idea of like, can I be queen but still be the person that I am, because I'm not going to be the person that's just going to like have a bunch of babies.
This is no surprise to anyone out there, but I'm still saying it. Being a woman in Westeros just sucks. Like, completely is like the worst. You have that expectation.
It's not a great gig.
It's really, really not. And like, I feel a lot for Rhaenyra. I mean, as much as she is just like thinking politically, and she's probably not even imagining all the consequences that could come her way in this episode. It's just like, this is somebody who has clearly just been stuck in this horrible situation. She's had like this big promise that it's the one thing she's looking forward to, and she's seeing Aegon and like the rug is being pulled out from under her with that. Like, she's desperate and she's acting desperately because she knows nothing else and she just doesn't want to be stuck in misery.
Right. And that's maybe why I know she's promised right now to, the son of the sea snake at the moment. But if that marriage ends up happening somewhere down the road or that falls through or whatever, I mean, Daemon is married to somebody else. And he was like, I could take on a second wife. I know he said right now, his wife hasn't produced anybody at this point. That could work to Rhaenyra's advantage. If she's like, okay, I want to be able to take a husband so that I can keep the throne and I can have power, but I don't want to have any babies. Well, if he has this other wife that could potentially have babies, then she doesn't have to have any.
I hope that it works that way. I don't have any sense of where any of this is going to go, but I think that Rhaenyra...
Which is one of the fun things about actually not having read the book.
No, it's really exciting in this situation, and I think we're both fully all in on where things are going from here. So of course, hit that subscribe button. We don't want you guys to miss any of this other chaos. How are they going to shock and or horrify us moving forward?
We also have a bunch of other shows that are going to be coming up this month, like Handmaid's Tale starting up this week. Andor's coming up. There's a lot going on here at the channel, so hit that subscribe button.
Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you here next time.